If you haven't already faced this kind of decision as a pilot, I promise you, you will. And I was kind of surprised how tempted I was to make kind of an unwise decision here. And so please take this video as a warning that even if you're a really conservative pilot like me, there are these situations coming for you where you're gonna be tempted to do something stupid. And if we're just meeting, my name is Charlie Gassmeyer. I'm a commercially licensed pilot and an airplane owner based here in Dallas, Texas. And I make helpful content for student and private pilots. So a couple of weeks ago, I was going to film with TAC Aero, which is an awesome flight school that I've done filming with before, doing backcountry stuff, but they just opened up a seaplane program. And so we were going to be doing several days of filming in their seaplane. My videographer was coming down there. We had several planes lined up to fly together and document the whole thing. It was just gonna be awesome. So I was gonna fly my Cessna 182 from Addison, which is in North Texas, down to Tango 82 Fredericksburg, which is in the Texas Hill Country. And it's about a 2-hour flight in my 182, or if I had to drive, it was gonna be like 5 hours because it looks more like this. So I really didn't want to drive. And so this is a good spot to mention that I was already exhibiting some potentially hazardous attitudes in just how kind of pre-committed I was to really trying to make the flight instead of the drive. The FAA says there are 5 hazardous attitudes for pilots, and we have to learn this for the test. There's anti-authority, which means don't tell me what to do. There's impulsivity, which means do it quickly. There's invulnerability, which kind of manifests itself as, well, it won't happen to me. Macho, my personal favorite, which means I can do it. And then resignation, which means what's the use? So we were planning on starting to film Wednesday morning, and I was planning on flying like early Wednesday morning just to be able to work, full Monday, Tuesday, and then get down there. However, on Tuesday, I looked and all of a sudden the weather forecast was starting to kind of deteriorate Wednesday morning. So on Tuesday, I'm working, and I'm realizing, okay, Wednesday actually might be out of scope because of that weather. That doesn't look good. And so as I'm working, I realize, oh shoot, if I want to avoid this drive, end of Tuesday might be really my only time to do this. But I really wanted to avoid flying at night because the airplane had just come out of annual. And this is just kind of a personal minimum for me. I don't like flying IFR the first flight out of annual because, they've taken the airplane apart, they've checked a bunch of stuff. To me, it's more of a maintenance run to just make sure everything is working okay in the airplane. So I don't want to be like in the soup, in the clouds, and realize I have a problem. So I really like to go do a nice VFR flight, not be in a rush, do a much longer pre-flight, and just not be in a hurry in any way, shape, or form. And so as Tuesday is going along, and I realize, well, gosh, I don't really want to fly at night, but I've been working all day, and it's kind of a hectic week anyways. My window of opportunity here is starting to shrink. So I was definitely feeling some impulsivity to just do it quickly to try to get out the door. So now it's Tuesday at like 5 p.m., okay? And I have a limited window, and I've been checking weather. I know that Wednesday morning is not super an option. That's a weird way to say it. Is becoming less of an option. And so I check weather one more time before I walk out the door. And this is where the curveballs start happening. So one look at the radar has shown that there are now some pretty good storms that have built up to the southeast of Addison. I thought, well, crap, okay. Well, that's not that big of a deal. If I want to, I can just kind of make my route of flight a little bit westbound. And so I, again, looked at the route of flight, which didn't really have much weather forecasted, but now the forecast has updated. And wouldn't you know it, right about the time I'm going to get about here, there are pretty big storm cells forecasted to pop up right there and be moving this direction, right into my route of flight. So I can't really go this way. That's not an option because of the current storms. And if I go that way, I run into the big storms that are popping up right now. So that means my only other route would be to go way this way. But the problem is it's going to get dark right about the time I get here. And so the rest of this route I'm going to be doing in the dark, trying to get to Tango 82 while there are big storms potentially popping up all along my route of flight, and I'm dodging them at night, potentially IFR, the first flight out of annual. And that's where the macho also kind of came in, because I thought, well, forget the storms. Yeah, there's a storm here and there's a storm here, but I have an airplane, don't I? I'll just go all the way around. No big deal, and I'm comfortable at night. Like, it was kind of like a John Wayne or something. It's like, I'll just go around it. It's not that big of a deal. And so I sat down to make a go, no-go decision walking out the door. All of a sudden, I just stopped, and I thought, this is such an obvious decision. Just drive. I realized that the reason I was so tempted was not because, like, if you presented to me and you said, hey, Charlie, do you want the first flight out of annual for you to be rushed and trying to hurry and get fuel? And by the way, you got to dodge not one storm, but 2 storms. And then you're also going to probably be in the soup flying night into your destination, but you could drive. You know, like I would say absolutely not. But the thing is, any one of those things, like if there was just a storm in Dallas, but it was 10 a.m. and sure, I could fly as far west as I could in daytime and not be in a hurry, that wouldn't have canceled the trip. Even having that second storm system out westward would probably not cancel the trip either. It being nighttime wouldn't necessarily cancel the trip. But once you combine all of those things, it becomes a more obvious decision of like, yeah, there's too many factors at play here. And so that's why I have really, really tried to live by a mantra of safety slips in small stages. Each of these hazardous components of this flight that I was planning kind of creeped up one at a time. It wasn't this big, obvious, all-at-once decision where everything fell apart and it was an obvious thing. No, there was kind of one variable that got introduced, one more variable that got introduced, one more variable that got introduced. And this is how I've seen it played out of all like bad safety decisions that I have either made or have been tempted to make. This is how it plays out in real life. And you have to be aware of how those magazine articles or YouTube videos you watch where some guy flew into the mountains with his family on board at night in a thunderstorm. You're like, how on earth would that happen? And this is how it happens. It doesn't happen because it's thunderstorming out of the side and say, all right, honey, load up the plane, let's go. That's not how it happens. That's too obvious. It's one thing slips at a time, slips at a time, slips at a time. And before you know it, you're somewhere you never should have been. And so once I knew I was driving, and this is really important, first of all, I was really bummed because I wanted to fly. Flying's fun, but I also didn't want to make the 5-hour drive. But I was reminded of something helpful I heard lately, which was anytime something happens, you wished it went a different way, instead of just pouting about it, ask yourself, okay, what does this now enable me to do that I couldn't do before? And once I just took 5 minutes to think about that, I thought, oh yeah, man, I can catch up on this podcast. I can call this person. I ended up talking to my dad for like an hour, which was cool just to catch up with him. We don't have that much time to catch up during the week and things. And so there was a lot of good to it. And so ask yourself, anytime you have to scrub a flight, what does this now enable me to do that I wasn't gonna get to do before? And then once I got there, the flying with TAC Aero, guys, it was unbelievable flying this float plane. We got drone footage, we got chase plane footage, we got footage on footage on footage. And I'm sorting through all of it, trying to make it into a few different digestible, kind of practical, understandable videos for you guys. But it was an absolute ball. And so if you're subscribed to this channel, or if you're not and you subscribe to the channel, increases the likelihood that you'll see it whenever I post those videos. But if not, because the algorithm doesn't always recommend all the content to everybody, I want to let you know, I just created what I'm calling the Insiders newsletter. And it's a newsletter once a week that I send out where I include a really important aviation lesson that I've learned, short and to the point, but hopefully really practical and actionable, as well as links to my latest content. So that way, if the algorithm doesn't feed it to you, I'm sending you the link once a week. So that way, there's no mystery as to, well, is Charlie posted in a while? Where is it? I'll send it to you. And then I also include some behind the scenes and things. So you can join that list over at airplaneacademy.com/insiders. I'll also put a link down in the description so you don't miss anything. So I think one of the biggest takeaways from this flight I almost made, which I think would have been a bad decision, is that the biggest risk to me in aviation is me. It's usually not a storm that's gonna hurt me. It's not necessarily maintenance I didn't do that I should have done. Like, I'm pretty good about that. No, the thing that is most likely to hurt me is me, and it's making dumb decisions or flying when I shouldn't or anything like that. What's really interesting is that the aviation safety statistics actually back this up. And so a little while back, I went for like hours and hours, studied aviation accident data and really tried to draw the correlation to what is the thing that is going to hurt you in aviation. And I was able to distill it down to about a 12-minute video that I think is really practical if you want to be a safe pilot, which is hopefully everybody. And that video is on the screen right now. So I boiled down what is going to hurt us as aviators and what we can do about it. So I will see you over in that video.